Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the 8-Bit Adventures Podcast. I am your host, Sean Hayes, and we're here to bring you the latest and greatest gaming news of the past week. This is episode 355, and we don't have many news topics this week, but the ones that we have are real doozies, folks. So strap in. And actually, it's a piece of news from each of the big publishers. So the big three console makers each have a bit of news this week, and they are doozies left and right. Xbox in particular, so that kind of just dominated the entire gaming news cycle this past week. So we have to talk about it. Thank you all for your patience with no show last week. It turns out that I had strep, so I made the right call in not doing a show. I was absolutely wiped out from that. I'm not sure if there's going to be a show next week. Is I may or may not be away next weekend. So still trying to figure that out, but just wanted to give people a heads up. And we'll probably try and do some streaming next week. I've just been, it's dealing with illness. And even though I feel mostly better, it's still just between the weather and acute illness and then underlying illnesses. It's just I've just been exhausted. So, yeah, it's been a week, but we've lots of meat on these news topics, so I don't want to take too long doing the intro. So we are going to dive right into this week's news. All right, so first up, Nintendo is the first one. Gamesindustry.biz reports that the original Nintendo Switch lineup, so this is the Nintendo Switch, the Switch Lite, and the OLED Switch, will be discontinued in Europe, possibly around, by mid-February 2027. This is because of a law change in the EU, where it will require devices that use rechargeable batteries to be able to replace they're going to require devices to be designed in such a way that consumers can easily replace the batteries themselves. So if the battery completely dies, because with those models you kind of have to take the whole thing apart and do stuff with thermal paste and everything, and that's a lot to ask for the average consumer. So what they're requiring is updates so that you can sort of like laptops where you can just easily pop the battery out and then slot a new one in, something like that. Because these devices weren't designed that way, requires an overhaul. And Nintendo, unfortunately, has said, well, for the Switch, for the original Switch, it's not worth it. So we're just not. So in an effort to kind of comply, we're just not going to offer it anymore. So for Switch 2, including Switch 2 and the revised consoles and controllers, those will be rolled out over the course of the next several months into next year. However, the discontinue will also affect the original Pro controller for the Switch, the NES controller for the Switch, the Super NES controller for the Switch, Pokemon Go Plus, and the Sega Mega Drive control panel for the Switch. So those will not be available. So it's like they're stopping manufacturing sometime soon. And so like they expect the final shipment to last until mid-February 2027. So yeah, I'm on the fence about this. On the one hand, like I do like that they are complying with the Switch 2 and that is the current console. It's just like Switches are still selling. So it does feel bad to just say, "Oh, yeah, if the choice is for us to invest a bunch of money into making a SKU of this that is better for consumers, but it's on an older console, or just not just discontinuing it so that it's not available to people anymore, we're going to pick option B." And that it kind of feels bad, but at least Switch 2 revisions are in the works. So that way those will then be available. The thing I don't know is like if you already have a Switch 2, if they're going to allow like an exchange program, because that would be interesting, I think. I don't know if I don't think they're going to go for it, but so yeah, and no, this is Europe only because this is like EU laws and policies, so it's only going to affect countries within the EU. So they did say due to the way distribution, like some quirks with the way distribution happens and like manufacturing nexuses, that the Switch 2 revisions may not hit like all of the territories within the EU at the same time. Like it may be staggered between countries. So just be on the lookout for that for any EU listeners. But here in the States, if we don't have anything with that, so this doesn't affect us, unfortunately. I don't know if like they'll just carry it over. Like once they revise it, if they'll just have that be the baseline model. I don't know. Seems weird, but yeah. So we'll have to see when it comes out. Next up, all right, on to the next big console maker, Sony. IGN reports that Ireland's EU commissioner has said that if you were hoping that perhaps Sony's announcement that they're doing away with physical media like could be stopped by the EU for being anti-consumer, unfortunately, Ireland's EU commissioner has said Sony can't be stopped from doing away with physical discs, as companies, quote, are free to offer games and services in the manner that they see fit, provided that consumer rights are fully protected in line with national and EU law. So what this means is because they're going to still offer them digitally, you can still get them. And I guess that is like being compliant with the law. However, the commission did say they would speak with industry and consumer representatives to draw up like an industry code of conduct for how to manage a game's, quote, end of life. So this means like, will people be able to still download it? Will they be able to download it to physical media like on their own? Are servers going to be maintained for that stuff? Is there going to be enough of a lead time of alerting people that something will no longer be available? So things like that, I'm sure. So yeah, unfortunately, a lot of folks, I guess, were hoping that the EU was going to step in. It's not working out that way, unfortunately. Yeah. Yeah, this was something I really wanted to cover last week because that was when the information dropped. But yeah, unfortunately, got sick and could not talk about it because this is wild to me. Just not having physical media, period, just seems bizarre to me. And I know. Oh, excuse me. I know we're heading toward, we're already in like a digital age for purchasing media. And I mean, we've been for a while. But I think there's just and this is a thing where we kind of don't really have this problem with like music or film, like movies as much. But it's the fact that with games specifically, like, it's a thing where, like, movies come off of streaming services all the time, but like, it's usually if you purchase a movie, like, it's a file that can be read by any number of like platforms for you to view it on. Like, they're largely not proprietary file formats. Most of the time they're going to be like .mov or .mp4. Unless if you purchase it directly from a company. But I mean, if you purchase it through like Amazon or something, you'll be able to watch it. Although you'll be able to watch it on Amazon in that case, but yeah. Sorry, I got something in my eye. But with games, it's you have to play it through a specific platform. Right? So it's kind of like if you bought stuff, like if you were to buy things specifically to use like for Amazon Prime, or you were able to buy things, like, can you imagine if you were able to buy movies or shows from Netflix, and then it would just be like a Netflix player that would allow you to play your downloaded like videos from that service, but you had to go through them. Similar idea. And so that leads to all sorts of questions for games preservation, because it's often the case where it's not supported. And now you have to think about, well, is this game going to be playable, 5 to 10 years down the line? Like, or is it just not going to be available at all? And then like, in most cases, like if you have it downloaded locally, like you can still play it. But, if it requires connecting to a server at all, you're toast. Now, Nintendo kind of did something like this with Pocket Camp, where they were like, they sunset the initial version, but now, I think you wouldn't be able to get it anymore. Like, you couldn't purchase it anymore. It was something like that. But if you had downloaded it, or if you already had purchased it, like, they would still honor it. So they're gonna have to come up with plans like that, in an effort to ensure that those games are still accessible and available to consumers. So, all right, I think that wraps up that bit of news. It's basically the EU isn't going to save Sony not going, or not pulling physical media. So yeah, our final news story of the week. So for those watching the video version, this is a picture of Xbox CEO Asha Sharma. Game Informer reports. So this is going to be a big one, folks. Okay. So this specific part reported on by Game Informer. The Federal Reserve, the U.S. Federal Reserve, okay, they manage the money. They have named Asha Sharma as an advisor to the Productivity and Jobs Task Force. This task force is to, quote, assess the economic impact of new general purpose technologies such as artificial intelligence, or really what they mean is language learning models and generative AI, to inform the Federal Reserve's policy judgments. Now, at first, I was just going to have that be the news topic, but it is related to the other big pieces of Xbox news this week, which is it's quite telling that the Federal Reserve is picking this person to be on this task force of productivity and jobs. When Xbox announced that they are laying off a total of like 3,200 employees. And for the Xbox division, that's about 20% of its workforce. They are doing 1,600 now, and then 1,600 like sometime in 6 months, sometime next year. But yeah, the total 3,200 is like after factoring in the reports that have come in. So already this seems like kind of a farce. But it makes sense with their stated goal, which is, to see what the economic impact of pushing people to using generative AI and language learning models is. Studios affected in the layoffs. It's quite a bit, so buckle up. Bethesda is losing about 115 employees. Activision, Blizzard, id Software. id Software is losing about half of its workforce, 136 developers. King, Mojang, Obsidian's losing about 52 employees. Xbox Game Studios, and Zenimax Online Studios, which is losing 213, including many from the user experience and usability teams. While Arkane, Compulsion Games, Double Fine Productions, Ninja Theory, and Undead Labs are going to be spun off from the company. Now, I believe it's Compulsion Games and Double Fine Productions have already said that they're just going back to being independent. They've got the money. They're going to cover it. Ninja Theory and Undead Labs are working on trying to secure funding in California, and then Arkane is going through a whole sort of negotiative practices with the French government, where the studio is located. Of the employees laid off from id Software and Bethesda, 146 out of 158 employees were CWA union members, so Communication Workers of America. 26 of those positions were in QA. Now, QA has kind of long been at the bottom in terms of seniority, in terms of like perceived importance. But my problem is, like, if you're going to cut all of the QA and especially force like Claude or something onto people, I mean, if you're going to do that, you better make any cards that replace it like good. But also, like, it's such a weird thing to do. So, in response to all this, OneBGS, which is the CWA union at Bethesda. So it's One Bethesda Game Studios. They're going to strike next week in response. And I'd imagine if it doesn't go well, they may continue striking. So, yeah. It's a real big deal. Like, it's massive. It's 1,600 employees now, 1,600 employees later. And it's the fact that these are all like big studios is really telling. And then just and then the like cherry on top being that the person in charge of overseeing all of this is being put on a jobs and productivity task force. So, yeah, I don't really have many words to describe my feelings toward this. It's bad. It's real bad. And I was kind of hoping that, Microsoft would do better. But it seems maybe not. So, that does wrap things up for this week. I know it was a big topic. I didn't want to get too far in the weeds of it with my opinions. I mean, it's also getting late here on the East Coast. And I already felt myself start to ramble kind of incoherently, and I want to try and prevent that. So we are going to call things here. So thank you all for joining me for this episode of the 8-Bit Adventures podcast. To recap, Nintendo is cutting Switch 1 sales in Europe. PlayStation can't stop, won't stop with the taking away your physical media option. And then Xbox, God, it was so many layoffs. And like people are trying to do damage control. And it's just real bad. So Xbox is laying off like 3,200 people, 1,600 now, 1,600 later. With I don't even know. It's just, my hope is that the OneBGS strike will kind of help influence things. They also talked about Sharma talked about removing redundancies in between companies. So it seems like they're going to have them be less independent now than they were before. And essentially looking for ways to streamline and align their tool usage across each company. Which leads me to say that like people are willingly spending money on like vendor licenses for, code or artwork or something. And yeah, Microsoft is just trying to bring it all under one umbrella. They may be trying to force Claude on everybody or whatever their LLM is. So, my hope is that they don't start setting like Gen AI usage metrics. But thank you all for joining me for this episode of the 8-Bit Adventures podcast. If you would like to see more content, you can head on over to 8bitadventures.com. If you want to help support that content, the best way to do it is to become a patron over at patreon.com/8bitadventures. Or you can subscribe on Twitch, twitch.tv/8bitadventures. Patrons you can support for as little as $1 a month. And I would like to give a big shout out and thank you to all of my current patrons. Thank you for your continued support. Our opening theme is One Up by Professor Shy Guy. You can find his work over at professorshyguy.bandcamp.com. And with that, to prevent any further ramblings, I'm going to go ahead and take off. I am dreading having to go back through the audio for this episode. So I hope you all have a wonderful week and get plenty of rest. Stay hydrated. Do all that fun stuff. And as always, have fun, happy gaming, and enjoy your pie cake.